All right, let's start by reading the passage itself, and then we can kind of summarize these transitions and see what sounds best. Originally coined by economist Joan Robinson to refer to markets with multiple sellers of a product, but only one buyer, the term monopsony, I have no idea how to say that, can also refer to markets where demand for labor is limited. Okay, it's a confusing sentence. In a product monopsony, that probably is it, the single buyer can force sellers to lower their prices. In a labor monopsony, employers can force workers to accept lower wages. Now, these seem like two different examples, right? So, okay. Yeah, I don't really know. So let's just look at the choices here. Earlier definitely is involving the concept of time. This passage is not about time. It's not saying one thing happened first and then another thing happened later. This is not part of it. Instead is a but word. So, well, maybe that makes sense. There might be a contrast. Similarly is kind of an and word, but it has that extra kind of like, oh, we're making a comparison. So it's a little bit more specific. And in particular, I would say is a word that we would use to talk about an example. So let's look at these two sentences again. First, they're talking about this product monopsony, and then they're talking about a labor monopsony. So I don't think that that second thing is an example of the first, right? Even in the sentence that came at the beginning, they're saying there's two different types. So one is not an example of another. They're both examples. So that doesn't make sense. However, I think a lot of you are going to get a little tricked by this. Do you think that, okay, because there's two examples, it's like this type is a product monopsony, but this type is another type of monopsony, right? So the but is, I think, it seems like it fits in here. But what they're trying to do is to say how these two things are similar, right? They're different types, but they're both monopsonies. If I'm not saying that right, that's a lot of this word. So C is the answer here. Just try to look back a little bit, right? She originally coined this term to refer to multiple sellers, but only one buyer. Can also refer to markets, right? Also is a word that suggests kind of like a continuation of a thought, not a contrast. It's tricky. It's tricky. I guess another way to think about it is connotation, right? What is the connotation of these two sentences? They're basically both neutral, right? They're just definitions. So are we trying to say that one is good and one is bad? No. So that's probably, again, why but is not a good fit here. But I do think this is a tricky question. I think a lot of you are going to pick B because it feels like it does more and because it's first. And so sometimes we get a choice we kind of like, and then it's hard to shake ourselves of that choice when a better one comes along because we've kind of made up our minds. So try not to do that, right? Be a judge. You can't decide the case until you've heard all the evidence. You got to read all the choices. But if you do this wrong, I would say don't worry about it too much. Like this is one of the harder ones in this section. It's a little weird, but hopefully I've given you enough evidence to understand why C is a better fit here. We really need some other contrast word to make this a contrast, and we just don't have that.